Well, hello my little beauties and welcome to this training series which is on Trongate MX. So I'm going to be covering as much of this as possible. I'll call it Trongate MX a complete course actually, and I'm going to make it so that you're really good at this stuff. Believe me, this is really easy and I think that you're going to be quite impressed. Many are saying that this is the best part of the whole Trongate ecosystem. So that's what we're going to be covering, and you're very welcome. Now, you may be wondering, what is Trongate MX? What problem does it solve, and why do we even need this? Well, let's imagine that you are a commercial developer and a client asks you to build a website like this, okay? I just chose this at random. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but if you look here, these are updating live, and we have a live stock market chart here. And there's a few other parts of this page that we can click on. So here it's fetching share prices, for example, and it's doing all of this stuff without us having to refresh the page. Now, this is the kind of stuff that people pay a lot of money for. This is the type of stuff that really impresses clients. You could see a little update there actually. And the funny thing is, it doesn't matter how good you are at PHP or even Python or some other server-side technology. Unfortunately, if you're going to build a website like, if you're going to build, slow down, a website like this, then unfortunately, you're going to have to add JavaScript, lots and lots of JavaScript. Now, traditionally, you would really have two choices. The first is to use vanilla JavaScript. The trouble with that is it's kind of difficult to learn. I mean, there's a lot to it, There's lots and lots of code to write, which means it's difficult to maintain, and there's a slow development time. So vanilla JavaScript is impressive, but it's slow, So the other option is use a JavaScript library or a framework. So something like Angular, React, even HTMX, which, by the way, was the inspiration behind Trongate MX. There's some really excellent JavaScript libraries out there, but the trouble is I cannot find one that gives you a guarantee of stability. Even if you look at HTMX, which I really like and I love how they've solved these challenges, well, at the time of doing this video, I think they've already moved on to version 2, and they're doing the whole sort of versioning game like everyone else, and best of luck to them, but it's just not for me. I like stuff that is stable, and so these options are all fine, but if there's no stability, then I can't use it, Trongate, on the other hand, is different. Trongate is PHP's first, and currently I think PHP's only, stability first framework. Now, we update Trongate MX and Trongate all the time. It's constantly changing. This is the live documentation for Trongate MX, but I'm going to take you offline. I've not uploaded this yet, and you can see if you look really closely, there's new features here. We're adding new stuff all the time. The difference is we don't break stuff. In Trongate, we believe it's possible to improve without breaking. That's really the key difference. So, if you're wondering what Trongate MX is, well, strictly speaking, it's a JavaScript library. Actually, just a JavaScript file. That's all it is. And if you're wondering what the purpose of Trongate MX is, well, it lets you build super dynamic pages that have all of this beautiful sort of JavaScript functionality, let's say, but without, and this is key, without you having to write any JavaScript code. Okay, so even though, yes, it is written with JavaScript, but you don't have to write any JavaScript. You just include the thing and everything is fine. So now you know what Trongate MX is. I'm going to show you what we're going to be building in this introduction video. So in this one, we're going to build a basic page. It's going to have a button that says click me. Now, when you click on the button, there's going to be a spinner that appears on the page when it's fetching content, and then it's going to add content to the bottom of this page like this. So there's a spinner and there's the content. I'll do this again. Click, there's the spinner, and there is the content. That's what we're going to be building. Now, I know that that's not going to win any design awards, but we're starting with the basics and we're going to gradually build up to some very advanced and super cool stuff. Now, I said Trongate MX was influenced by HTMX, and it's true. And HTMX is excellent. There's a few things HTMX does that Trongate MX does not do. That's for sure. However, there's certainly a lot of things that Trongate MX does that HTMX does not do. And with Trongate MX, you get a sort of cohesive ecosystem. So enough waffling. This is what we're going to build on this one. And I'm going to walk you through all of the documentation stuff here. And you're going to be really good at this stuff. Shall we dance? Then here we go. All right, kids. So to kick this one off, I'm going to assume that you know how to set Trongate up, okay? There's plenty of videos out there showing you that. And by the way, I'm using XAMPP here, just so you know, and I'm using Trongate. If you happen to install Trongate and you have a page that looks totally different from this, don't worry. It's just a template. Designs change all the time. Don't worry about it. But I am going to assume that you know how to install a Trongate application, okay? Let's save a little time with this one. All right, so here's a new Trongate application, and I've opened this up in my text editor. Now in Trongate, everything revolves around the idea of a module. So for example, our home page gets triggered by a welcome module, and perhaps, let me pretend you never saw that. So we have a welcome module. There's a chance that the code has changed, so don't worry about it too much. And that's what's giving us this page. If I echo hi and do that, you can see it says hi up here, okay? Again, don't worry if your code looks different. It's absolutely fine. The framework changes all the time, right? Don't worry about it. So we have some modules, right? Now, I want you to create a new module within the modules directory. So to do that, we're going to have a new folder, and I'm going to call this one tutorial, and there we go. Okay, so that's a folder inside modules called tutorial, and this is going to have two folders or two subfolders, whatever you're calling them, subdirectories. We're going to have a controllers subdirectory and a views subdirectory. Inside the controllers subdirectory, let's have a PHP file, and I'll make this a bit bigger. It's going to be called tutorial.php, and that's with a capital T, by the way. And for some reason, it freaked out on me. Why did it do that? Hold on. Pardon me. I have no idea what just happened there. Right, new file, tutorial.php. Don't you mess with me. Don't you mess with me. There it is. Okay, that was a little trip to the Twilight Zone. Anyway, we're going to have some opening PHP tags. I'm going to say class tutorial extends Trongate like this, okay? So this is what we do when we are creating a module, and this is a controller file, just so you know. So let's have a little function. Now you can say public function if you want. I think we'll do that. Why not? I mean, this is strictly speaking optional, but let's just add this in anyway. And we'll have this one called index. And I'm going to just echo hello world and save it. Okay. So if we now go to our website here, and we've got a base URL. Now, my website happens to be inside a directory called mx_tutorial. So I'm going to add on to the base URL /tutorial. You can see that it says hello world. Okay, pretty cool, pretty cool. So let's make life interesting, and we're going to load up a view file. And the name of this view file is going to be, how about just first? Because it's our first little venture with this thing, right? So I'll do that. And by the way, if I save and refresh, you can see that it's trying to load up something, but it's struggling. So what we're going to do is go into Views, right click, New File, and it's going to be first.php. This is lowercase, right? So this is a view file here, okay? Now, I'm going to build a basic HTML page here. It just so happens that I'm using Emmet, and I can do a little exclamation mark and then a tab. Maybe you've got that type of thing, maybe not. But I'm going to assume that you know how to build a basic HTML page like this, okay? So let's do that. And let's, inside the body here, let's have a little container class. So I'll have a div with a class of container. So it's dot container tab. Now I am using Emmet here. You might not have that, but it's just a little shortcut. It gives us a div with a class of container. And then inside here, I'll have an H1. And again, I'm just saying H1 tab. And I'm just going to say Trongate MX. As simple as that, okay? So if we save and refresh, you can see it's loading up our view file. The source code is exactly what we would expect, just some HTML, a very basic page here, and it says Trongate MX. Now, here comes the magic. We're going to add two things onto this page and really bring it to life. The first is, we're going to add a style sheet, one that comes with Trongate. In fact, you know what? Forgive me. I'm going ahead of myself. Before we add anything, let's add a base tag or a base element onto the head section here. Now, this is new for some of you folks. It's kind of new for me, actually. But if I write base and then tab, you'll see that we've got this thing that says base href equals. And inside here, I would like you to add in the base URL. Now we can do that with Trongate by going into PHP. These are short tags. I'm echoing base URL, and this is a constant. And by the way, the base URL is declared inside config, just so you know. So I'm setting up this base tag, base href equals, and then base URL. This is ordinary HTML, by the way. And just so you know, I'll do a little paragraph. If I echo the base URL here, you can see the base URL, right? So the idea is that when we declare the base URL this way, it means that we can import things like JavaScript files and CSS and all of that stuff without having to always add in the base URL or, you know, /JS and all of that nonsense. So the first thing that we're going to be adding then is a style sheet. To do this, if you happen to be using Emmet, you can say link tab. And if you don't have Emmet, then you're all out of luck and you're going to have to do some typing. But the way that we add a style sheet is we say link and then rel equals style sheet, href equals, and it's going to be css / trongate.css. So Trongate gives you a really basic style sheet. It's nothing too fancy, but it's just a foundation that makes the pages look sort of nice, you know? So if we save and refresh, well, you can see that we have a little change here. It's not going to set the world on fire, but it's going to just make the buttons and whatnot look kind of nice, you know? Now, let's do a couple more tweaks. Oh, and by the way, you'll notice that I'm just saying CSS trongate.css. In case you're wondering where this is, it's in the public directory. See on the left, public CSS Trongate CSS. There it is. Just a little style sheet. Okay. And because we've added this base thing, it means that we do not need to do any of this nonsense or anything like this or whatever. We can leave all of that out thanks to this here. Okay, now let's do a little bit of styling and we'll see if we can make this page look just a wee bit better. So I'm going to say style. I'll just do this on the page and I'll say body, background color. So background hyphen color. I'm going to say steel blue. So if we save and refresh, you're going to get something like that. And then we do have this container here. So I'll just say for dot container, remember it's a class. So let's give it a background color of white and a minimum height of 100 VH. So that's 100% of the viewport height. So save that, have a little refresh, and I'll zoom you back. And there you go. Now, of course, you can go further. You could say H1 text align center if you want. It's not a problem. And hopefully you've got some kind of reasonably decent looking page now. Okay? So the next thing that we're going to do is, well, we've got this base, well, I've got this paragraph here that at the moment says base URL. Take that out. I'm going to keep the paragraph. But inside the paragraph, I'm going to have a button. And the button is just going to say, click me. I'll save, refresh, and there you go. Now, if you want, you can do this H1, P text center. Nothing wrong with that. But just to let you know, with Trongate CSS, you can also, if you want, add in a class of text center. I'm just showing you an alternative way here, right? And that's going to center the button. You can also, if you want, make the button a little bit bigger by adding in a class of LG for large or XL for extra large. You can do SM for small or even extra small, okay? But I'm going to go with large, so LG. And there we go. I hope that's easy enough. Now also, Trongate has got a form helper. So here's all of our form helpers. Fabulously documented, I have to tell you. And there's how you would do a form button. But we're not going to be doing this. Let's just keep it simple, okay? So just an ordinary button. There you go. Now, the goal of this tutorial is when you click this button, we're going to fetch some content. We're going to have a little spinner on the page. And then underneath here, we're going to add the content, or we're going to have the content added. So the way that we're going to use this, or the way we're going to do this, is we're going to add Trongate MX onto this web page. So right in the head section here, I'm going to say script, a little tab, and then I'm going to say src equals, and it's going to be js / Trongate-mx.js and save. So that's going to add Trongate MX, which is this file here, onto the page. And this is Trongate MX, okay? Now, by the way, you may be wondering, well, shouldn't we have this down here at the body section or something? Well, you don't need to. You can if you want. But the truth is that Trongate MX only really comes to life after the page has loaded. So it doesn't matter where you add this, okay? I'll just have it in the head section here. Okay, so we're all ready to go. Let's do something cool. Now, I'm going to open up a new tab and I'm going to go to the base URL. And again, your design may look different. Designs change all the time. Don't worry about it, right? But the main thing is, hopefully you've got a default page here for your Trongate application, right? So what we're going to be doing is we're going to click on this button and the content from that is going to go under here. So let me show you how easy this is. On the button, I'm going to add an attribute of mx-get. That means we're going to do an HTTP GET request. And where are we going to do it to? Well, this URL here. Now you can copy the URL if you want, or you can just echo base URL, whatever makes you feel good. And so we're going to fetch from this URL as soon as this gets clicked. So let's go back and we're going to click, and there you go. Now it looks a bit weird, that's for sure. And as a matter of fact, it has added the content into the button, which is kind of crazy. So let's see if we can do something a little bit more graceful than this. So underneath the paragraph, let's have a div with an ID of result. So just an empty div with an ID of result. And this time, when we get from this URL, let's have it so that the content that is fetched goes inside this result div. And to do that, we're going to say mx-target equals, and then it's a little hash symbol result. So that means that once we fetch the content, we're going to have that content added into this result div here. So let's save, refresh, I'm going to click, and there you go. Pretty cool, pretty cool. All right. Now you can see the problem here, of course. It's adding in the whole page. We've got the header section and everything, and that is not too cool. So, wouldn't it be nice if we could just target the sort of main page area here? Well, turns out you can. So I'll add a new line so that we're not going away over here for ages and ages. I think this looks a bit neater. And I'm going to show you another attribute, which is mx select. So this means what is the thing that we are going to select. Now you can have anything you want here. Let's have an H1, for example. So if we go back, I'm going to click. You can see it's added in the headline. We could have a paragraph. I'm going to click. Again, your content might look different. Doesn't matter. But for this example, I'm going to just select everything inside the main element. So if I go to this page here, man inspect, I've got a little element called main. You might not have that, doesn't matter. But I'll say, let's select the main stuff and we'll chuck that inside the result div, okay? So here we go, we're going to click, and don't it make you feel good? All right. Now, there's one more thing that I want to show you before we end this video, and that is how to add a little loading indicator. So, let's imagine we want a spinner that spins around on the page. With Trongate CSS, you can do this really easily by just having a div with a class of spinner. There it is, just an empty div with a class of spinner. We can save, refresh, and look at that. We've got a little spinner right there on the page. By the way, you can easily move these down as well. We've got classes like MT1 or MT3, etc. You see how it's moving down? So you can do that if you want. Doesn't matter, okay? I'll actually keep this off just for now, though. We'll keep this really, really simple. But just know that Trongate CSS has a lot of cool stuff. For example, on the headline, we could say class equals blink. And now we've got blinking text. So there's a whole bunch of cool stuff that we have here. But we're not going to go into that just now. For the moment, let's have a little spinner here. And what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that when you click on click me, then the spinner's going to appear, then it's going to fetch the content, and then when the content appears, the spinner will magically vanish. So the way that we do that is we're going to give our spinner a class of MX indicator. Okay, so this is a loading indicator. So it's MX indicator. And when we do that, by the way, if we save and refresh, you'll see that the spinner has disappeared. So the next thing is we're going to add another attribute onto this button here. It's going to be MX-indicator equals, and then we add on something that represents this. So how about if we say dot spinner? This is a CSS selector, and we are saying that when we click on this button, we want the spinner to appear, and we want it to fetch the stuff, then the spinner disappears, then it populates. Now, Trongate is so fast, you're probably not even going to see it. If I click here, I mean, it's just too fast, you know. So to do a good demonstration, I'm going to open up the welcome controller file. Don't worry if your code is slightly different from this. It probably is different, but don't worry. Wherever the method is that loads up the home page, I'm going to say sleep, and then in parenthesis, add in a little delay. Let's say 3 for 3 seconds and save. So now, if I click on click me, there's the spinner. It's fetching the content, and then boom, it adds the content onto the page. Okay, so just look at all of the stuff. I reduced it to 1 second there, by the way, but just look at all of the stuff that you were able to achieve without any JavaScript at all. This is just our first step, and we are only on the foothills of ascent. There's a whole lot more to this, and I do hope that you'll stay tuned, and I hope that you'll join me in the next one.